A divided world means one against the other, in my view at least. And if we are able to cultivate more and more empathy for people that might not be part of our in-group, then we can actually bridge these divisions, bridge these gaps. I like to look at every human being and see them as just as human beings. And my mind wants to quickly put labels onto these people, onto everyone, onto everything. And it's also something that's built into us naturally because it's more resource efficient. Welcome to this episode of Stream of Consciousness. I'm really looking forward to sharing my perspective and thoughts on the topic of living your essence in a divided world. I think this topic now is more important than ever, and I'm really looking forward to it. So let's get started. So, what does living your essence mean? To me, it means that you speak your truth, that you listen to what wants to happen, and that you are in complete surrender to life that wants to happen through you. Currently, I'm seeing that we are living in such a divided world, in a world where it's us against them, where there are certain people in power over others, where there's so many narratives that can be in society, in politics, in every single aspect of how we get together, that tell stories of separation, that tell stories that it's better to be part of one group than part of the other. And storytelling is such an important part of us humans coming together and creating culture. And it's very powerful. And I really want to choose words wisely that we can create narratives that support us individually, that support us as groups, as a society, and as humans who we are living just on this one planet. Together also with the environment and all the other beings that are part of this planet. And when I think about this divided world, it really just tears my heart apart that I see these conflicts rising up everywhere. And for example, I don't watch television very often, but every now and then, every couple of months maybe, I do. And then I watch the news and I'm curious about the news because I'm curious about the stories and narratives that are being told and shared there. And the ones that I've been observing over the last couple of months and weeks are constantly stories based on fear. Every single part starts with something that infuses fear, and that brings us into a position where we kind of feel that we need to be rescued by someone else. This fear that the world will end, that something terrible will happen. Because look at news number one. What happened here to these people? Terrible. What happened over there? Terrible. So probably what will happen to you soon? Also terrible. So it's something that is just very present and which divides us more and more and more and more. And there are actually very interesting studies on the topic of empathy. And these studies show that if people belong to your perceived in-group, that means the groups that you identify with. For example, if you're a huge fan of this one soccer club, then members from that soccer club will probably also be part of your in-group. That the empathy changes if people of your in-group receive harm versus when people from your out-group receive harm. And I found that very fascinating and very obvious, for example, during COVID times, when it felt like, and I can share openly and honestly that my first experience was, some people on the other side of the world are experiencing something terrible, which is terrible. And it makes me sad. And at the same time, if I'm very honest and open, it touched me more and more in an uncomfortable way, the closer it got to my in-group, to people that I knew. So it's something very normal that happens to every one of us. It's built into our system. And the idea is that we can protect the people we love more than others. It's kind of built into our system. When living in tribes, for example, it's easier to protect a group of up to 150 people than the entire planet. And there are certain studies also that show that. So empathy is a huge topic, an ingredient, an important aspect to look at when we speak about the divided world. And divided world means one against the other, in my view at least. And if we are able to cultivate more and more empathy for people that might not be part of our in-group, then we can actually bridge these divisions, bridge these gaps. And how I like to do it is I like to look at every human being and see them as just as human beings. And my mind wants to quickly put labels onto these people, onto everyone, onto everything. And it's also something that's built into us naturally because it's more resource efficient. If, for example, we would go through a forest and then we would identify and observe every tree individually, just as, oh, this is a certain type of tree and this is another certain type of tree, it would cost us so much energy for our brain to do this processing work. So it's easier just to say forest. And that happens also when we meet other people, that because of resource efficiency and saving energy for our brain, it just goes the others or my in-group. And that can support in some situations, and in others, it just generalizes. All these people are like this and that, all these people are like that. And by sharing this, I just hope to inspire you that you can also see this, that you can also see these patterns. And as I was also sharing honestly and openly how I experienced that within myself, maybe this is an invitation for you also to be open and honest to yourself, how you experience the world. And the title of this episode is called Living Your Essence in a Divided World. So I would like to talk a little bit more about how that could look like and what that would mean for me. So living your essence for me is about being authentically yourself, speaking your truth, and not following stories or narratives that are kind of expected from you, that society says you need to be like this and that, and then follow this path. Living your essence for me means that you're very connected to yourself, connected to your thoughts, your emotions, your bodily sensations, connected to your entire inner truth. Living your essence for me means that you act in integrity and you follow this path of integrity, which requires a lot of courage. And I believe that we create separation and division by following narratives. Narratives that are constructed, often from the outside, from other people, because it serves them in some way. And I believe that if we truly would be more connected with our essence, we would not harm other people, because we would realize that if I harm you, I harm myself. If I try to take from you that I get more, it's not that I have more and that's it. I would experience that you would have less. If we look, for example, at cities, countries, and areas on this planet where rich and poor, like just financially speaking, live very close to one another, it really fascinates me every time that there's not, from what I at least perceive, and maybe it's completely different, that there's not like an innate pain of this inequality, like on both sides. And maybe there's stories like I deserve more or others deserve less, or that's the way it should be. I don't know. And I'm not the one to judge because I'm not in that situation. But I truly believe if we are connected to our essence, that means connected to our heart, to our thoughts, that we can own our projections that we might have on other people, that we can own the overlays that we might have, that we can own the stories that we're running about how life should be, how others should behave, what is right and what is wrong. If we can own that and then see others for what they are, I believe it would be impossible to start wars. Because, like, why would we start a war if we know that other people have the same needs as we have? Which weird strategy is starting a war? It only works in this narrative that some are better than others, some deserve more than others. So I hope that you can see my perspective is very connected with being connected to your inner truth, to your inner experience, and owning your projections, your overlays, your stories. And then connecting with one another through empathy, through compassion, seeing the universal aspects that we share as human beings, be it needs, be it longings and wishes that we all have. We might look completely different. We might have different traditions. We might eat different food. And that's totally fine. And I love it. I love this vast spectrum of colors and flavors, of tastes that we can share and create as human beings. And I believe that division only happens and can only be here if we live with these narratives that say some are better than others, some deserve more than others. So I want to invite what Charles Eisenstein, who you might know or might not know, he wrote a book which is called A Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible. And he says the core aspect of why we're living this world right now is that we live in a world of separation. And he says the alternative that he proposes and he wishes for is experiencing this interconnectedness, that we experience that we are all connected with one another, that we're not independent from one another, but interdependent, that we're all connected. And I believe that's true for this world as well. So I really invite you to explore living your essence, because I believe that that will contribute to your health, to your relationships, like to your partnerships, friendships. And I also believe on a larger scale that this will bring humanity closer to one another. That if we connect with our deepest truth, and if we can own conditioning and stories, that we can then meet in a truly open, authentic, and kind way. So I hope these thoughts of this Stream of Consciousness episode were inspiring for you. I'm so curious to hear about what you think about this, what you take away from it. And yeah, I'm just wishing you from the bottom of my heart that you step on this path of living your essence.